because it ran out, because it's a very slow process, and I think we have very easy and kind of helpful website, the COVIDLoanTracker.com, shows kind of a representative of like small businesses that have gone through this process, and of those that have been accepted, they have something like let me see, it is like 1% of those people have actually received any of the PPP loan money.
Right.
The free grant from the EIDL like still hasn't gotten through to most people and is less than the 10,000. And the loans of the EIDL are going to be much harder to get, just based on what some people are saying. So
Right.
they might pass more funding for it, but there's still a lot of issues with it actually reaching these small businesses. There's a huge backlog of applications with these banks, and they're all taking on business that are their clients first, because of course you would. If you're a bank, you're like, well, if you have lending experience with us, then you're just kind of got to be first in line. We can't tell them not to do that as far as the government, but then that means these small businesses that don't have lending history, or weren't with a SBA, a Small Business Association approved bank before this all happened, like,
Right.
are they going to get these loans at all, even when more funding passes, if they're in the back of this huge backlog?
Right. Well, that's the thing. So, for instance, a buddy of mine who is he's like a true freelancer, independent contractor, meaning he doesn't have a business incorporated as an LLC or filed with the state.
Yeah.
He and I took the same exact track, with the exception of I have a bank that's an SBA lender. So I personally, I filed through the SBA. What I did was I did the EIDL, the SBA emergency loan.
Yeah.
Then when they came out with the new the new application for the payment protection program, but it was still through the SBA, I did that. Then when the bank decided to put their application up for, I have Chase Bank, I did that, right?
Yeah.
I received a stimulus, but I did not receive the payment protection program money. I have a business that's incorporated in the state of Illinois. So I don't know how they're working the system out. So, and the way that I filled out, because I'm an employee of one, I wasn't entitled to a lot of money. So it wasn't like I was asking for like like $600,000. So I don't know how they're dispersing all these funds. I think that's a big gray area for a lot of people right now. But I do want to pull up that website that you were telling me about, the I think COVIDLoanTracker.com. I may have closed it. Let me pull it up here one more time.
Like are getting or have gotten it approved. I don't know. No one's actually seen money from the loans yet, but
Right.
Are often getting less than they ask for, specifically when they ask for under $500,000.
Yeah.
Those smaller requests are more likely to have less of their requests fulfilled, which obviously is affecting smaller businesses more.
Which takes me to a very interesting point. What we found is what banks are doing, and see, this is why you don't have protection programs for the people go through banks, because banks will always do what is in their best interest, right? So what the banks did was, whatever businesses owed them the most money were the ones that got the loan money first.
Yeah.
Makes total sense, right? So like, for instance, I don't owe the bank any money. And that's why I got an email that literally said the program ran out of money. I'm going to pull it up in a second. So the program ran out of money. Nothing we can do for you. We're waiting for further guidance. I was only entitled to $1,000. You mean to tell me that Chase Bank couldn't have just said, you know what? We're going to pick up the pieces where the SBA fucked up, right? Where the government messed up. You're falling through the cracks. You've been banking with us since you were 18 years old. You have incredible credit. You got money in the bank. We're going to help you out. We're going to give you $1,000. They couldn't do that. Bank was just like, nah, we can't do anything.
Well, because like you said, you're not in debt to them. You don't have that lending history. And so, yeah, you're further back in the line, even though you've been banking with them. And so then I'm not sure exactly how it was in your case, but it sounds like if you just got $1,000, that was part of that up to $10,000 grant
Right.
that they gave on application, but it's actually only $1,000 per employee.
Right.
And so since you are like a contractor
One.
LLC, then that's why like you're a single employee, and that's all
Right.
they're going to give you. And it
Wait,
also
wait,
affects you worse
right.
if you don't have a payroll.
Which
Um,
which here's the thing. In the sense that like I know I only have it's just me, right? So I'm not crying
mhm.
because I didn't get money. Whereas like other people that have more employees did, right? But it's the idea that like these the way that it's being rolled out is very like just shotgun mentality, just shoot it all out there, and everyone has a different way to kind of like take care of it. Like banks were not given very much guidance as to how to implement this program. All banks were
Yeah,
told was
exactly.
that here's this money, figure out who gets it. If they follow these guidelines, you get to ask us to forgive it, to forgive the
Hmm.
loan, right? So basically, the SBA basically put all the risk onto the banks, and banks inherently are risk averse. So again, they're never going to do anything that doesn't benefit them. So not only are they incredibly risk averse, but they took it to a point where they basically discounted the entire reason why the damn plan was put in the first place. It wasn't to save a host of these companies that didn't need to be saved. And, you know, I forget the guy's name, but this billionaire guy was going around CNBC and the financial shows this a week ago, basically saying we need to let big business fail. Certain
Yeah,
businesses that haven't proven themselves to be solvent on their own of their own volition deserve to not be in existence anymore. So I
yeah.
don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and that's these big businesses are getting this kind of this blanket bailout, while small businesses it's piecemeal. It's going through the banks,
Right.
which, by the way, I didn't even include the article, but these banks are making a lot of money off of putting off these, like giving out these loans just from even the reduced interest they have, and because the government's trying to make it so they'll take on the risk. So they're making a lot of money off this. But airline industries, cruise line industries, what I do mention is that 50% of the American workforce works for small businesses, including contractors and independent owner employees. Like that is half of the U.S. workforce, and that's why I think they put out any sort of small business stimulus that tried to include contractors, because they realized that at least they got to give them something. We need to prop this up a little bit, but it's still not enough to make those people who you know make up a lot of our not just employment records, but
Right.
actual drive the economy. Tries
Right.
these like independent contractors and like urban small businesses.
So
It
yeah.
you know we're going to lose a lot of money. Essentially, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs, and unemployment's going to go much higher up if even just a small portion of these businesses fail. Which it looks like. I think there was another statistic I put in the article. I'll have to see who it is, but basically it put out projections for how many small businesses will close because of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's I
17% is the optimistic look. That's like it could be much worse than that. And that's a lot of workers.
No, and honestly, I'm pretty confident that it is going to be a lot more than that. I think what people are not understanding, and again, I mean, I'm a young person, and I'm only like now kind of starting to put this all together based upon
Hmm.
what happened in 2008, right? So in 2008, that recession happened, the housing crash, all that stuff. I mean, I was early on in life. I had no idea what was going on, why it was happening, all these things. But I see this slow moving iceberg now, right? I see now how the economy is taking a downturn because of the lack of work that's happening right now. So the cause for what's about to happen, I foresee is, I mean, I see it as different than what happened in 2008, right? This isn't because of CDOs and bad housing, bad lending practices, but not yet,
Hmm.
right? Like we don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
yet,
that's
meaning
still coming up. Yeah.
yeah, right. And like I said, I've been saying this, and I'm going to say this every damn show, every damn chance I can get. We know that 30 some odd percent of the United States did not pay their rent on the first of last month. Okay, we're halfway
Hmm.
through this month. The first of next month is going to be really, really tough for a lot of people. Like I said, Some people got stimulus checks, some people didn't. Some people got payment protection program checks, some people didn't, right? And what
A lot of
sucks
people
is
didn't.
that the
Yeah.
marginalized, or not the marginalized, but the communities that need the stimulus money the most are often the ones who don't have to file a tax return because they fall into a certain bracket, right? So that was their whole
Hmm.
scramble to create this website for them to just give the IRS their social security number. You mean to tell me right now in no government database that those people's information was in there already? This is
Yeah.
ridiculous, right? So again, these people who needed the money the most are probably going to miss their rent check again if they haven't already
Hmm.
once. So the second week of next month is going to be really, really tough. And that's when I think we're really going to start seeing the pain of this whole economic shutdown because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. And essentially, I think what the government's trying to do is they're outsourcing, this essentially stimulus and welfare they'd be giving directly to people through stimulus checks and more unemployment and just financial aid. Not to mention all the medical care that they'll need. They're trying to outsource that to the private sector by bailing them out. But
Right.
we're still seeing these huge layoffs everywhere in all these big companies that are being promised bailouts. Like there's still people being put out of work, and if you can't operate safely, that's fine, but they're not giving any sort of leave and they're also cutting off any medical insurance benefits they would have offered from those people by just laying them off. So
Yeah.
it's again a waste of this money that could be going directly to people instead of going to these large businesses that aren't going to take care of people any better than the government.
Right. And this is crazy. And like I don't like I to be honest with you, I'm not much for talking about Bernie at the moment, but I think the movement itself
Yeah.
still deserves our words. And it's crazy. This is literally, and this is where I think a lot of people got really upset with the whole way that the Bernie campaign played out. It's because
Hmm.
this moment is literally a living example of everything that they were fighting for. Everything. We talk about universal health care, some form of guaranteed. See, he was in contrast with Andrew Yang as far as UBI was concerned, but Senator Sanders' answer to UBI was a federal jobs guarantee, which is essentially, again, what we needed right now. We need a way to guarantee money into people's hands, especially during times of crises. So,
Hmm.
we have the student loan debt crisis that's about to bust as well. I mean, our country is so over leveraged with debt from literally from the top down. We just took out
Hmm.
what, $7 trillion, I think it is. The stimulus itself was 2 trillion, but there's so much other more money that's being thrown out there that most people aren't even aware of. I think it's in upwards of 7 trillion. And my buddy Mobley, he's going to come on in a little bit and talk about that too. But we're
Yeah.
so over leveraged with debt right now that I fear that it's all going to come down and crash at the same time. People are not going to be able to pay their mortgage. They're not going to be able to pay their rent. So now we have a housing crisis. People
Hmm.
have people have 9-year car notes now, by the way. So we're going to have people that are defaulting on their car loans. Because they're going to choose between something.
Yeah.
We're going to have people that they're going to stop paying their student loan payments, right? And yeah, okay, so Trump said that he's going to defer your payments for 2 months. Like this, once everything starts back up again, it's not like all this stuff just went away. None of this was forgiven. Everyone has to
Yeah,
still
not
pay all
not
this
to mention they're
back.
trying to get rid of the forgiveness programs that people have, were legally in place for student loan before all this happened. That was
Right.
basically Betsy DeVos's job is to like find any way that there was student loan forgiveness and make sure it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So you're right. Especially if unemployment, can't be brought back from this. If it takes a while for people to start working again, like all this debt has to crash at once. That's inevitable, and then
Right.
you have a joblessness crisis followed by a homelessness crisis.
Yeah, and people don't understand, there's 75 million homeowners in the United States and 50 million of them hold mortgages, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be it's going to be pretty substantial once this keeps rolling on. And even when people start getting back to work, you think like we're going to flip a switch and like everything's just going to run back to normal? No way, man. Everyone's buying habits are still going to be all over the place. Uh, you know, the operations, like the daily operations in different workplaces, are going to have to be reconfigured, towards
Yeah.
people's natural tendencies now. Because I mean, we're changing. We're changed now. I don't think we go back to exactly the way we were before. It doesn't happen,
Oh
especially
no,
not
we
without a
absolutely have to
vaccine.
change now. It's not like this is a one-time thing. Like we have to, even if it's not necessarily, a virus, like we have to look for a future where there are environmental hazards, and we're going to have to change the way we live and live less conveniently. And it's, hopefully we have to learn something like that, but that's also going to take investment. And if we're just trying to go on about our lives and act like everything's normal, then yeah, a lot of people
Right.
are gonna get hurt.
Okay, so before you leave us, I want to play this short 40-second clip for you, and I want your reaction. You may or may not have already seen it. Dr. Oz.
Yeah,
Do you know what happened with Dr. Oz this week?
yeah, yeah. I've heard about this. I haven't seen the clip though.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play the clip. You got me queued up. All right, let me unmute this.
Dr. Oz, help us. Well, first, we need our mojo back. Let's start with things that are really critical to the nation, where we think we might be able to open without getting into a lot of trouble. I tell you, schools are a very appetizing opportunity. I just saw a nice piece in the Lancet arguing that the opening of schools may only cost us 2 to 3% in terms of total mortality. And, that's any life is a life lost. But to get every child back into a school where they're safely being educated, being fed, and making the most out of their lives with a theoretical risk on the backside, it might be a trade-off some folks would consider. We need to get industry back, supply lines. I mean, things that we can do without putting the nation at risk.
All right, so clearly a gaffe of sorts, right?
Yeah, because also, I mean, why? I blame anyone who puts Dr. Oz on TV first
Fair,
and
but
foremost,
here,
and then I blame Dr. Oz for saying
so
that.
okay, so because I think framing means a lot towards conversations, and it's unfortunate that the framing of conversations sometimes isn't the best. So I've also read things, and even to myself thought, well,
Yeah.
this idea that if you let it run its course, right? Like it runs it. I mean, this is a natural process of life. People would, kind of look at Darwinism for to explain a pandemic, right? Survival of the fittest kind of thing. The world is trying to reset. I mean, look at the environment, right? The what is it in Venice? The water's clear. It hasn't been clear in almost 100 years or something like that.
Yeah.
There's different things that are happening as far as what people could say are cleansing things. And again, I'm not, saying what Dr. Oz is saying, but that question, right? That idea, that question doesn't come out without negatives. And the question is what we're doing now with this prevention the right idea, or is all the hurt that's going to come from the prevention? Because obviously this whole conversation that Dr. Oz and homeboy on Fox News had was all about the economy. It had nothing, right?
Yeah.
That's all these people care about is the economy. So again, at what point is that the right question, or is it never the right question, right?
Well, and I think that's kind of the problem with this is there's at least the basis. I don't think I ever say it in any reasonable ways with Fox News, but like there's the basis of a reasonable question of like not saying that, oh, we have to decide between lives and the economy, and at some point it's the economy, but of saying that like these are both drastic things. Like the economy crashing and and having a very permanent effect on a lot of people's lives is absolutely a bad thing that we need to weigh in this conversation. But when you frame it like that, like, oh well, it's going to cost 1% of lives and this much of the economy, like let's open the economy, that's where they start, they take that reasonable idea of a conversation that should be having had to something that's like it's just turning lives into numbers and being very callous about it. And it is also like it's a false equivalency. We can make it through this and be safe. This all wouldn't happen if there was better regulation in place to begin with. But but like trying to take those lessons. Not seeing like this is good because the earth is healing, but it's like, okay, well then how can we make sure we live our lives where the earth heals and we're not just willing to sacrifice anyone?
Yeah, I'm really hoping that people actually take a really long second and pause I really hope that people take a really long pause to really reevaluate what is the most important thing in life. Even I myself have really done a lot of introspection, a little soul searching throughout this time. Because now that I think about it, I was kind of getting not off the rails, but I feel like I was following the wrong path, right? Like this, we all get sucked into. I mean, the only way I know how to describe it is just what we know of capitalism today, right? Get as much as you can while you can, right?
Yeah.
Instead of get what you need, get what you need, take a break, hang out with your friends and family, smell some roses, then go back and get more of what you need. But it's, it kind of felt like I was getting here and I was just only getting. That's all I was worried about. So I really hope people kind of change the way they think about the world. I believe the world is actually alive, right, with us. So this whole thing with the air clearing up and the rivers and all that stuff. I mean, I'm glad it's happening. I just hope people can keep it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I hope we can live a better way like that. And I agree. It's definitely that mentality created by the capitalism and just the system we live in. I hope this teaches at least some people who are willing to learn a lesson about that. But yeah, only time will tell.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, Kohl, go ahead and plug your stuff real quick, and then we'll get you on out of here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me again. It was always great conversations. But yeah, I mean, I've got my blog, Right to Know, WordPress, and I'm always on Twitter at Cold Brew, KOHLD Brew. If you want to see more of any thoughts I have there. But thanks.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for your time today. We'll be in touch, my man.